Gives that a second to load. Live is the question.
Can't talk me.
Supposed to say we are live. Oh, here we are. Okay, we are live. Okay, great. Well, welcome everyone to our 2025 What's the Buzz first monthly chat of January. So excited that you're here. I'm your host, Amy Keenan, founder of the ISV Society. I bring you this monthly chat every month to try to bring some education, tips and tricks, and all thing industry trends, whatever it is, just to keep you educated, informed, and up to date on what's going on in our wonderful ecosystem. Today, we are talking about how to set up your ERP for integration success. So we have CADTALK here, and we have Scott and Jeff Brickler both going to chat with you about this awesome, amazing topic. And I'm going to let them take it away because, like I said, this is only 20 minutes. We will send out the recording and let's let them kick it off. So welcome Jeff, welcome Scott to chatting with me today. And what's the buzz?
Hey, thanks, Amy. This is really good. So good afternoon, everyone. It's good to be here. Scott, good to see you too. I'm traveling this week, so you're back at home, I can see. So hopefully all is well there.
Yeah, all is great here on this side of the Atlantic.
Yeah. So I'm traveling overseas right now in Europe. So it's quite late, but love the opportunity to be here to chat, talk about integration, which we've been doing for a number of years now. So you want to introduce yourself a bit, Scott, like who you are and what we do here?
Sure. It's Scott Brickler, founder and CEO here at CADTALK. We essentially we integrate manufacturing and engineering systems together for manufacturing companies. So a lot of times we're like CAD integration is kind of the platform that people know us for, but we integrate a lot of different engineering softwares to manufacturing softwares like ERP. So
right.
Yep. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah. So I was just thinking, right. I was talking about all those acronyms we do, like CAD, PDM, and PLM. Those are the engineering systems, right? Those are the designs. So, and we work with engineers and we work with manufacturers. And Scott, you've been doing that a long time. Says here 18 years. Has it really been that long?
Yeah, I think when we first, I was joke about my the first version of CADTALK that we built was the summer before my daughter was born in 2006, and she's a senior in high school this year, getting ready to go to college. So yes, 18 years we've been working on
Yeah,
it.
that's the same year. That's the same year I got married. So like, I guess I've been married for 18 years now. That's good. That's good to know. That way I can get reminded so I
You'll
don't
never
miss
forget
that.
your day or
Yeah,
year.
I don't want to miss. Yeah, I don't want to miss that. Like my niece's, my niece's birth, how old my niece is and how old Cat Talk is and how long I've been married. So I guess that was a pretty important year, 2006. So we shouldn't forget that.
Yeah, I think I was working on it to keep her mom from going crazy dealing with me. So I figured I was sent to the basement to work on code while she dealt with that. So
Right, right. So, Cat Talk, we've been around since 2000 and first started in 2006. Of course, now we have customers on 5 continents all over the world. One of the reasons I'm here in Europe now today is because, of our spread of Cat Talk. We work with all manufacturing companies of all different sizes, what I usually tell people is anywhere from 50 million to $250 million revenue companies. So all different sizes, kind of SMB, mid-market, all the way up to I'll say large enterprise manufacturing companies that we work with, and we help with, bills of material, and people use CAD Talk to process the bills of material. So today, we're going to talk a little bit about, what we know best about integration, right? Of course, we integrate with these platforms, engineering software and ERP, but I like a lot of these topics, Scott. Would I be wrong in saying that a lot of these topics would be just good in general for integration in terms of whatever you're integrating?
Oh, absolutely. I think that, a lot of things we'll talk about today will have general applicability across any type of integration solution that you're looking at. We specialize in a very small niche, but this would obviously you could apply this to anything that you'd want to integrate as far as enterprise systems. So,
right.
Yeah.
So the kind of 3 key pillars of integration of like why you want to do it. Of course, better data quality. I want to get to that because that was a big topic at one of the conferences I'm at today. Smarter data, And then time, of course, time saving. Integration is always about saving time. That way you have to do it manually. But really, the two major things I think are really important here are the data quality and smarter data. And this was a big topic at this conference that I am about, especially when they talk about industrial AI and the use of AI. I think this is something that we've talked about in the past, Scott. So give us a little bit of, I know you're a technologist and you spend a lot of time reading and focusing on technology and where it's going. Why does this matter so much? I mean, I know this conference I have been talking about it, but I think your perspective on the value, the value of the quality of the data.
Mhm. We're just seeing more and more technology and decisions, and everything else being built off of that data, especially in a world of AI. I mean, you think about these large language models and machine learning and such. They're only as good as the information they have to work with, and they're doing all the correlation and all of the analysis on the data that we have. And what we have is the data that's in the ERPs or in these large systems. And what we're finding is that it's the traditional garbage in, garbage out problem. If we don't feed it in good information and to work with, it's not as useful as it could be. So we're starting to see to where the quality of the data in the systems is starting to get as valuable as the thing that you do. So it's like almost everybody in the world now is maybe they're not just a manufacturing company, but they're also a data company, because the data will also become part of the asset of that company, especially in a world with AI. Mm.
Yeah, that's the same sentiment I had here. Was I was part of a breakout session with manufacturing. They talked about that a tremendous amount about how chat bots and the analysis of that data can really tells you what kind of use cases that you can have. So the difference between a company that has quality data, well, I should say consistent data, right? The quality data will have a lot more use cases for AI in the future than those who don't, right? So the importance of having good, consistent data and integration and automation allows you to create that the type of consistent data will give you more capabilities in terms of decision-making, AI capabilities in the future. Without that, right, the number of use cases you'll have will be limited. And like you said, the data is really the asset as much as the products that you're making.
I mean, and I love the part about being consistent I think consistency is actually the more important thing, even over accuracy. I mean, I think a lot of times with data, it's better to be consistently wrong than sporadically right. And so because you can adjust to consistently wrong. You can't adjust to sporadically right. So it's the same thing with like the golf analogy. If I slice the ball every time I step up to the tee, I could just aim right. Or aim left, I'm sorry, aim left, depending on what you're right-handed or left-handed. You can adjust to that, but if I'm spraying the ball every which direction, I can't plan for that. I can't do anything with it. You think of data the same way. You have to say, even if it's not quite accurate, as long as it's consistently inaccurate, you can work with that and then make adjustments. So it's like, because you're looking for direction, not necessarily completely perfect.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was using the analogy of my fitness tracker, my watch. It's all these a lot of people talk about like, is it correct, right? Is it really measuring your steps correctly? Is it really measuring your heart, the number of beats your heart has per minute? Or is it measuring your calories, your calorie burn correctly? And it doesn't really matter, right? Because it's consistent. It does it the same way every day. As long as you wear that watch on your wrist and you just do the normal activities, you go to sleep, you walk, you just do everything normal, it'll collect that data and it'll be consistent. And it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong, it's still directionally so I shouldn't say it doesn't matter whether it's exactly accurate. It only matters if it's directionally accurate. So if you do, it counts your steps the same way for all the time you wear that watch, steps are going to be counted exactly the same way. So directionally, well, am I increasing my step count? Am I lowering it? Right? Is my heart rate getting lower or higher? Is it staying the same? Is my blood pressure going up or down? Is it 100% accurate? It doesn't really matter, but kind of directionally from decision standpoint whether if you're going in that right direction.
I think it speaks a lot to like these questions that come up a lot about specifically around like, if you're looking to integrate two pieces of data, like what do I have to have ready to go? And this is very specific to things that we look at, which are solid models and and things like, is my data set up for it, or do I have this in here? And it's more, I mean, obviously the more data you have and the more data you have, the better the integration can be. But I think it's actually, instead of having it be more consistent is actually the better thing, because you can plan for that as we go back to that same analogy. But and also thinking about these integration solutions as being iterative. You're not, I think a lot of people think about it as being a big bang, and they're waiting until everything's kind of set up exactly right to do all the full tilt automation and integration they want to do. But you also can do these things in stages and think of it being more of a continuous improvement process of, what can I work with now with what I have, and can I implement some small changes, get some things working, get some integration going, and then make improvements over time, and think of this being kind of an iterative approach to improve the integration over time, as opposed to like the big bang, let's get it all working all at once type of solution.
Yeah, a common question people will ask, I know in any kind of integration, but specifically to what we do is, am I doing it right? I had a conversation very recently. Somebody asked me, hey, can you look at my models and tell me if I'm doing it right? Do I have what I need, right? What do I need to change? Very common question. What do I need to change to make this integration, perfect, or to make this integration what it needs to be? I've had heard like, well, we can't do it because, we're not doing everything perfectly, or, my data is not perfect. And to your point, I think it's really focusing on the few things that matter the most, the best time to start is yesterday, but the next best time is today, right? It's in the sense of like, just get something going that, look at what you have and say, okay, what are the things that I do have that are good, that are consistent, that I can use, and build on that, rather than worrying about, oh, what do I need to change now? How, what will I do in the future? We're gonna get everything perfect, and then we'll do something. Because what I typically find is most organizations have the basics, right? They'll have the basics of what they need in terms of modeling. Because a lot of the softwares do it for them already, right? What I think what people misunderstand is, like, a lot of times when you're designing today kind of CAD systems, is like they're creating the structures, they're creating all that information for you to begin with. So you have a lot of that data. You don't need that much to begin with. And then, as you mentioned, you could really do it step by step or incrementally. It's not a one. Integrations used to be, I think, Scott, this is one of your visions for CADTALK. Integrations used to be like really behind the scenes, right? You had to have a coder, have somebody develop any kind of integration. And now you have these platforms like CADTALK, like other integration platforms, where you can configure it right in the interface. And it doesn't have to, it's much easier, especially with AI, right? It's much easier now to make changes than it ever used to be.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, I think even on the next slide, we'll talk about like just the bare minimum things that people usually have, for ERP standpoint. But yeah, you're right. It's like the cost of the complexity of integration has gone down significantly with the platforms and the added capabilities that we have today to do this. So it's a lot easier to start with something, get it working, get some benefit, and then add additional changes and additional changes or additional thoughts as time goes on, as the business evolves, because it's not as painful to make those changes that used to be in the past.
Right. Much simpler. Leverage what you have now. And then as you get better, right, you see that continuous improvement, something to do. So I remember when I first started working with customers, that you just really did the basics, almost part numbers, right? Some way to identify the part. I always identify this as like, you're looking a word up in the dictionary. You just need that word. What am I looking up? A part number. What that part number looks like, whether it's whether it's 6 digits or it's 8 digits or 9 digits or whatever, doesn't really matter. That you're just, typically describing your part, and probably if you're doing some kind of designs, how your revision process, right? Which revision are you doing? These are kind of this is like the bare minimum. If you have these things, even if you don't have all of these things, there are still ways to integrate, but these are kind of the three main things that I see people have already, and that we would need for integration. Part numbers so that you can identify the parts themselves. Descriptions, so typically people want those in their ERPs. And revisions, so you can track what happens during changes. So Scott, what are some other things that people can do? Let's say they have that today. They're like, man, I already got that today. I'm already set. What can I do? What else could I do? Or, that would be beneficial? Or maybe I'm doing more than that. Are these other things that I'm doing helpful? So what are some of those things?
I mean, the more things we have to work with that's obviously consistent that we can plan on, the more automation or the more complete the integration can be. So, and I think one of the things that we do a little bit differently is that we're doing more than just like taking data from one side and copying it to another. Like we're doing some analysis, which we call intelligent integration, where we're actually looking at the data from the source system and then making some decisions or are deriving information from that to then figure out how to do it on the manufacturing side. So in our case, we're saying the term we use, we turn engineering designs into manufacturing execution. We're able to do things like look at the attributes of the models and look at the engineering designs and figure out things like what raw material it should be made out of, or how many square inches of raw material will be consumed, maybe what operations will be used to make this thing. Typically, you think about what a manufacturing engineer does when they look at a drawing and they figure out how they're going to make this thing. A lot of those manufacturing decisions can be made or at least or automated along with the manufacturing engineer to figure out how to transfer that data. Whereas like those decisions can be, so the more data that's included in the model that's consistent, we can key off of, we can figure out a lot more and create more of a derivation as opposed to a straight copy.
Right, exactly. So it's not just like an import tool. A lot of people think like, oh, you're just importing. It's so much more than that, right? You're adding intelligence, you're adding value on the transfer, and the more information you have, of course, the better, right? You have raw materials in there, you have finishes in there, you have like bounding box or length or width properties. All of that can really drive even more automation, but we shouldn't let perfect be the enemy of good, right? If it's not in the model today, then it's not a problem. It's just a matter of saying, in the future, maybe there are things that you can do to improve, but getting that data in there consistently is the first step. Everybody wants everything to be perfect from the get-go, right? How do I get to kind of nirvana, right? How do I get to the point where everything's perfect all the time and not worry about that so much and just think about it. It's not, as you said, I think earlier, it's not a big bang. It's not a one time, one bite of the apple.
Right.
But some other things that I know I've worked on in integrations in terms of, like looking at material thickness. I did a project where we could look at the material thickness and based upon that thickness, like per plate versus sheet metal, right? It goes to the plasma or goes to the laser, right? Or if it's got a length property, maybe it's cut on the saw. If it's extruded material or pipe, right? You can make those kinds of decisions to automate some of those tasks
I
and
think
help you with those routings.
another big differentiator. I think a lot of people think of black box integrations like Zapier and things like that, where you're just copying data like in the background. These things you say, well, every time I change the description here, change it over there, and those are kind of the most common. We think about data integration platforms. One of the things that it's a key differentiator that we do is this idea of a semi-automated option as well. That's why we have an interface, and there's ability to actually look at the data inside of an interface before it goes over. And people really like that because when you start getting the more complex integration scenarios, you can't always figure out every decision that needs to be made during that transfer. So what you're doing is you're automating as much as you can, and then presenting kind of what the automation did to the user, and then allowing that person to make decisions, and then augment that even more with things that couldn't be figured out by the technology. And that combination of the human interaction with the automation produces an ideal result, as opposed to like it seems to be like it's integrated. It must be in a black box on a server and just happening in the background, which we can do as well. But the idea of that semi-automated, where you can take you can automate as much as possible, and then allow a person to review it and make decisions, and then send it on the rest of the way. That's kind of a unique feature that we do that not a lot of people do in integration scenarios.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, like, so I think here's kind of takeaways, right? Is like people say, oh, I can't do it. I don't have everything. But as long as you have the base level with that interface, with that kind of intermediate step, with someone looking at it, someone who knows can, really be that last check before it goes into the system. And then it also gives you that opportunity over time to find new ways in which to to improve the process, to automate even more, right? So it doesn't have to be right the first time. You're always gonna, not always, but you'll have a person in there initially to look at it, make the decision. And then, of course, improve that integration process over time. So that's the, I think, key takeaways. This is like, it's not an all or nothing, right? You don't have to have everything you need, just need a few basics. And then, someone's going to still be there to review everything before it goes into the system. So you're kind of getting the best of both worlds. You're getting still that human touch, but that human touch also gets them thinking about ways that they can improve that process over time.
Mhm.
So let's see. I think we're about wrapped up. We're 20 minutes in here. Do we have another slide? That's a good point. So last, Scott, can you give a little background about, your experience in manufacturing? How you obviously came to build CADTALK for a reason. Tell us a little about our manufacturing experience or your manufacturing experience and the kinds of people who work at CADTALK.
Yeah, I think one thing that we do is that I'm basically an industrial manufacturing engineer originally. So the idea was scratch my own itch on this problem in working in manufacturing companies. So we found that the best people to implement this solution and work with customers are people who used to be in the same situation. So most of our team who does implementations for customers are former manufacturing engineers or people from the manufacturing sectors who understand this problem very, very well. A lot of them even are former customers. So that's something we do. I think is very unique for us is that we, instead of like having software guys do the implementations and things, we actually have manufacturing guys do it. So to people who are domain experts is a different way of approaching this problem.
Yeah, really, it's about industry experts, right? People who've lived the problem, experience, worked in manufacturing, really worked between the two systems, right? So that's what's unique about a manufacturing engineer or even industrial engineer, like you were talking about, is like someone's between the two systems. I mean, it's like that person is the gateway, kind of like CADTALK is between engineering, right, design, and then manufacturing, and that person being in the middle can really bridge that gap between the two systems. So you guys can see our QR code to there. You can get to our website. If you just want to have a conversation, you can always schedule a call. If you're a partner and you just want to talk some more about it, maybe you just want to know more about integration in general, or you want to know more about manufacturing, just feel free to schedule a call there with us, and we'll be happy to talk to you about, what integration looks like, what manufacturing, especially with what systems you're using. So, Amy, I don't know, do we take questions on this?
I mean, I did put in the chat if anybody had any questions, they could certainly add them in there. And no one has added any questions yet, but if you do have a question, just let us know before we wrap it up. If you do end up having questions afterwards, obviously you can reach out. I will be sending out the recording email, so you will have that information in there as well. So yeah, thank you for kicking off January. What's the Buzz? This was so great and helpful, and I certainly learned a lot because I'm not familiar with manufacturing and CAD and all that stuff. So
Well,
but
great. This was
yeah.
great. A great opportunity to talk. Thank you, Amy, for setting that up.
There is
Scott,
one
good to see you.
question.
Oh, good.
Anyone else using PopDoc or CData?
So, Amy, I can come off mute. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yep.
Sure.
So for integrations, we're an ISV and doing a lot of integration work between the ERPs and our proprietary budgeting database for our customers, and finding it convenient to work with third parties who've done a lot of the API work, such that we don't have to build custom interfaces ourselves. Using PopDoc to do an obscure integration with NetSuite that no one else could go after, using CData for a lot of others. CData does not scale well price-wise. Just curious if anyone else is using any other platforms out there to talk to Acumatica, NetSuite, Intact, and such.
In terms of the transfer of the data?
Yes.
I think one of the like our experience has been like yeah, you can I think what you mentioned it's true. It's like some of those things don't scale well from a pricing perspective. Like I think we've seen products that built their integrations off of like Zapier and things like that. It works really good for like they're just trying to catch the long tail of the integrations they want to do. But if they try to do it any kind of volume, it starts getting really expensive to use some of those platforms to build onto. But I'd be interested in seeing what anybody else says on if they've used that to do other. I know it depends on what you're integrating to. If it's like, I see a lot of times people using platforms like you're mentioning for like CRM synchronization, where it really works well. But when you start getting the more complex data structures, it gets harder for those platforms to handle it. That's one of the reasons why we do, like, the bills of material tend to be really complex. That's why we have a solution for that. But typically like CRM data tends to be you're able to do it really well with kind of the off the shelf, kind of the like Zapiers and MuleSofts, things like that.
Yeah, with the ERP data, certain systems are better than others, but find intact anything complex, you've just basically got to fetch the raw tables yourself and sync the tables, and then you just can't do a complex view. It just bogs down. It bogs down when you use where filters half the time. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's better to just grab the raw data with a key index for differentials, maybe last modified, and then just do it on your own. There's some hidden gotchas out there. Intact is charging for data consumption to third-party developers. So using a third-party go-between may be able to give us a buffer between that. So we've built our own for Intact, but for the others, just curious if there are any other platforms that we should be aware of.
I think I know we hear about it was the one from I'm blanking on the name, Jeff. It's from Dell, actually, isn't it? Boomi.
Dell Boomi?
Yeah, Dell Boomi. We hear that one a lot for like general integration scenarios. Typically, I don't know if ISVs.
How do you spell that? You want to drop that in the chat for us?
Yeah, Boomi, I believe. Dell Boomi.
But it's just called Boomi now. I don't think it's called Dell Boomi. It's just called Boomi.
Okay. Yeah, that's a common one we see. Like, I mean, it's usually obviously we don't compete with them directly because like we have that kind of niche solution that we do, but for an integration, theirs is more for the black box type of like I mentioned earlier, like CRM synchronizations, things like that. But there are some ISVs I've heard to build on top of Boomi in the past. Yeah.
Okay. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boomi and MuleSoft both are similar platforms.
All right. Any other questions? If not, we will wrap up our January What's the Buzz monthly chat. So thank you so much, Scott and Jeff, for being on here. And thank you everyone for attending. We truly do appreciate it. And stay tuned for the recording email as well as future episodes as well. So thank you all. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.